Hey guys, welcome back to the Workplace and Apprenticeship 10 videos. In this video, we're going to look at lesson 3 from chapter 3, which is talking about surface area. So surface area is defined as the total area of an object or shape. And one way we can find the surface area of that shape is to create what we call a geometric net, or just a net for short. So your net is a 2D pattern used to construct 3D shapes, and all that you really do is that you have to imagine that you are cutting open that 3D object and then laying it out flat to create that 2D figure. So the surface area can then be determined by summing or adding up the areas of each side or face of that 2D net. So below here I have two pictures of shapes. So here I have a cube in our first image, then we have a square-based pyramid in our second image, and what you have to do is really, you got to use that imagination and just imagine unfolding that box. For me, naturally, when I'm looking at a box, I always usually start with my top. So if I were to pull down the top of my box, maybe this side here will come down as well. And then it'll lay flat there. So here will be the top right up here, folding it down. Here we got that front of that cube. And then all of our sides will just naturally fall down into place. So maybe we got one side over here. The other side will lay flat out that way, and then our back might just fall back even on its own if we were to unfold that. And then essentially what we got here is our geometric net, which there's a much prettier version to the right here. But the big thing here is you have to use your imagination. So if you want to relate it to some sort of object that maybe is in the same shape. So maybe you're looking at, maybe it's even a cereal box. You know, I know with cereal boxes, I start at the top and then I might pull the sides down. Maybe with presents at Christmas time or birthday presents, whenever you might think about using a box, try and use that to help imagine it, and then you just imagine it pulling down. So it even helps if you want to label each of these little spaces here. So this might be here the top, this might be the front, the bottom, the back, and each side. Then you can make sure you didn't miss anything, and then you should be good to go from there. Because then what we do is we see that we have a bunch of different, we have a bunch of shapes here, and these ones here are all squares. And then you just find the area of one of those squares, and then add it up 6 times, or just multiply one area by 6 to find that total surface area of that shape. So same thing here with your square-based pyramid. Imagine unfolding it. So I would typically start at the top here, which we call the apex. And then I would imagine pulling down one part and then moving from one side to the other, almost like I'm unpeeling a banana. And then what we'd end up with is a shape like this. So from there, it's a lot easier to see that you have 4 triangles and then 1 square. So find the area of each shape and add them up. So now we're going to do an example from our notes, which is example number 1. So a canning factory wants to use as little metal as possible to make its cans. It considers 2 can sizes that hold each about the same amount. One is 4.5 inches tall with a radius of 4.2 inches, and another is 9.6 inches tall with a radius of 2.8 inches. So we want to know, which can should they use? So which can should we choose? Should we choose this smaller but wider can, or should we choose the taller and thinner can? So which one here would use less material? So some of you guys might start to make some assumptions that maybe this one here is shorter, so might use less. This one here is taller, so might use more. This one here is thinner, where this one is wider, or maybe because they both hold the same amount, maybe they use the exact same amount of material. Well, so you don't want to start making any assumptions. So let's first start off by finding the surface area of each of those objects. So step number 1, we're actually going to find the area of our first can, and then in the second little step, we will find the surface area of our second can. So can number 1. So your first step in finding the surface area of really any object is first to draw the net. So as I said, when we're drawing the net, it makes it a lot easier to see what kind of shapes we're dealing with. Because right now, I know that I have two circles, but I have really no idea what this side of that can is going to create. So I'm going to relate this to maybe say I'm going to open up a can of soup. So when I open up a can of soup, I'm first going to remove the top of that soup, which will create a circle. And then I might remove the bottom of that. So I'll put that right here. And then what would happen is that maybe I'm left with just the side wrapping of that can. So what I do is I cut it down one way and then lay it out flat. And if you could imagine that there would create a rectangle. Okay. So step number one is to draw that net. And then now what we need to do is label all of our, sides. So we know that the radius of our circle here is 4.2 inches. So I'm going to label each of those circles with a radius of 4.2 inches. And then I know that the height of this can is 4.5 inches. Now, one thing that's very important here is that this is not this full length of this rectangle. This part here would wrap around your circle. So that is not the height of your can. So that's this part right here, which I might say is the width of that rectangle. So that there's 4.5 inches. Now, even before we can go on and find the area of each of those shapes, we're missing the side length of this rectangle. For your circles, all you need to know is you need to know the radius. Then for the area of a rectangle, you need the length and the width. Here you only have the width, so we're going to have to do some calculating to find the length. And in order to find the length of this rectangle, we're really looking at what is the circumference of that can. So you notice how it wraps around the full circle of that can. So we really want to know what is the circumference of that circle. So step one here in finding the area of each of our shapes is to find the length of that rectangle. So here we're really going to find the circumference. So to find the circumference of your circle, your formula here is your circumference is equal to 2 pi r, where r is your radius. And make sure here we're using the radius of that circle and not the height of that can, so the width of that rectangle. So we're going to go 2 times pi times your radius, which was 4.2. If you put that into your calculator, what we should find is that the circumference is 26.39 inches. And I'm going to put it here in our little diagram here. So we have 26.39 inches. And now we have all the information that we need to know in order to calculate the circumference, the area of those shapes. So step number 2 here, we can start here with our circle if we like. So we'll find the area of the circle. And these two here are the exact same circles, so you really only have to do one calculation. And so the area of a circle, if you guys remember that formula from grade 9, is pi r squared. So here we have your area is equal to pi times your radius, which is 4.2 squared. Now make sure, you got to be a little bit careful when you're putting these values into your calculator. You want to make sure you use the actual pi button on your calculator, not that rounded 3.14 value. And then also be careful with where you're putting the square. Your calculator might try and do the multiplication first if you got one of those dollar store calculators, or make sure you're putting the exponent inside with that 4.2, just to make sure we don't have any errors when it comes down to the calculator work. So when you get that into your calculator, what we should find is that area is equal to 55.42 inches squared. So now we have the area of each of those circles. So now we just need to know the area of the rectangle. So to find the area of a rectangle, you take your area, and that's equal to your length times your width. So here your area is equal to 4.5 inches times 26.39 inches. When you put that into your calculator, what we should find is that the area of the rectangle is 118.76 inches squared. And just as a side note here, just make sure you guys are watching your units. With the circumference, here we're finding just a distance or a measurement. So here we're just finding the just your regular inches, but when we're talking about the area, here your units are inches squared. So watch out for that when you're doing your calculations. So moving on to our last step for can number 1 is we need to find the total surface area. So this would be step number 4. So the surface area of the can. So essentially all that you do is you're going to take the area of each of those shapes. So we have 2 circles and 1 rectangle, and we're going to add them up. So we have 2 circles, so we'll have 55.42 plus 55.42 plus that 1 rectangle, which is 118.76. Add that up, and what we should find is that our total surface area for the can is 229.6 inches squared. All right, so just as a quick note here, I'm going to finish up the rest of this question in a second video. I'm only allowed to record 50 minutes at one time, so hopefully our second part of the video will not be nearly as long as this one was, but just make sure to follow along or click the next button and it should send you straight to the next video, okay? This is also a really great opportunity to try the second can out on your own and see if we get some matching answers, okay? So we'll see you in the next video.